OJAG graph based on this information that we've been using to do your frequency and your polygon. This is going to be the fourth graph on that. Now your OJAG, which is formerly known as your cumulative graph, looks at your cumulative column, your cumulative frequency. So when you set this up, over on the y-axis, this is where you're going to have cumulative frequency. Okay, now, along the bottom are your classes. This one is a little different because this one uses upper class boundaries. And I'll explain why this does. Cumulative says,
The frequency, is that the...
cumulative frequency. Cumulative. You can't read my handwriting?
The top part.
It's a little difficult to read, yes. The reason you're using upper class boundary is if you look at your chart for a second, when I'm accumulating all my frequencies, it's going to this highest point. It's going up to this guy. This class is going from here to here. This class is going from here to here. It's going to the highest point of that class. Now, technically, what a cumulative does is it's everything before that as well. So on some graphs, you used to see your histograms would say 26 to 34, 26 to 43, 26 to 52, because technically that's the way to do it. But to make your graph appear the right way, we do it 26 to 34, 35 to 43, and so forth. For us, we're just going to use our upper class boundary. Now, we have 7 classes, but you're going to have to drop it down one more. So you're going to go 7 classes plus 1, because we need to give it a starting point. So we need to have 8 marks, evenly spaced apart. Yeah. It does, however you can fit it in there. So just make your 8 marks. God bless you.
Thank you.
These are your upper class boundaries. Now the first one is because we have to have a way to start our graph, just like we did on your frequency polygon. Your frequency polygon and your OJAG have to have a starting point. So we're going to take your upper class boundary, and it's going to be right here. We're going to start like this. There's your upper class boundary. Your class width was 9. So all we got to do is add 9 all the way through. I have to keep the door closed. Cafeteria kids are.
So the second dash on the
That's actually your first one. We're going to have to drop this down to right here, to 25.5. This is your first class, and you're going to see that in a second, just like we did with your frequency polygon. And we put all your upper class boundaries all the way up. You're adding 9 all the way up. Now, your cumulative says it has to go from 0 to what it totals. So you don't want to look at your frequency, you want to look at your cumulative frequency. Your highest number that it has to go to is 50. So you want to make this start at 0 and go to 50. And if you have to go by tens, sometimes you have to go by tens, sometimes you can go a little further depending on, bless you, what you have for your y-axis. They need to be evenly spaced apart. We need to give this a title. These were your ages of your 50 women, your most prominent 50 women in 2012. Now the concept of accumulating is to watch it go up. If there was nothing in one of the classes, then it will kind of stagnate. It will have a horizontal line. It will show no growth. And then it will keep it going up. It will never go down. So we start with this guy, and this one starts at a 2. Then this one goes up to 7. You're in your cumulative one. Then to 19. Just put a dot. Then to 37. Then to 48. And 49. And 50. So, God bless you. So you can kind of see where your slowest growth is, where your steepest growth is. Now, once you connect these, watch. I'm just going to connect the ones that we know, these guys. They're line segments, they're not smooth lines. Look at right here. Your graph doesn't have a starting place. It's just like hanging in the graph there. So what we do is the same as your frequency polygon. We pull down one more class boundary here. That's why we took this whole part of your class boundary. So we just have to have it have a starting place. So therefore, from here to here, it started at here. And you can kind of see a little bit of a difference. You can see your growth. Don't bring it down on the far end because you want to show growth. And it makes it nice so that you could say, where was my steepest? Where am I the most leveled off? Like my least amount of growth? Where's my most amount of growth? And if you look at your cumulative, you should be able to look at the very top one, the very last one, and that is the cumulative one for your whole. In other words, I had 50 ages in here, right? And I'm on 50. I had 50 ages, the ages of the 50 most prominent women in 2012. Okay, so your ogive shows growth as you go up. You write yourself a little note. You're going to use your upper class boundary, and you're going to need one more boundary on the left. This is actually the lower class boundary of your first class.
So 25 point.
Where'd you get
25.5 is, look, it's your lowest boundary. Because if I took 9 away, this would be the upper boundary of the class before it, right? That also can go into a negative number. If I had 0 to 9 and I had to drop it down, I'd have to have a negative 9.5 or whatever my upper class boundary was. I'd have to have a negative number, but it would still stay in the first quadrant. It's kind of like we did yesterday with the negative 0.5. You're still there in the same one, but you kind of have to give it a negative. We never hit the negative numbers. Well, obviously, we're only charting the positives. Okay? Questions on your ogive? So we did your 4 graphs. We did 4 graphs. Let's just go through them again. Your table. This is called your frequency distribution table. Go back to your table.
That's the first one we did?
That's the table. That's the thing that goes like this with the classes. How do you find your class width?
Maximum over the number of classes.
Good. Max minus min over the number of classes, and how do you round? Good. Always round up. Your class width is between 2 intervals. Just to give a little review on this. Make the notes right on the graph paper that you did. So when you go to do these again, you have everything there. How do you find the midpoint of something? Add them together. Good. Add together and divide by 2.
Add the maximum.
Not your max and min of your class.
Oh, yeah, first class.
Of the class. And don't forget, if you take your class width, you can add your class width all the way down. You don't have to do each individual midpoint. How do you find your relative frequency?
Oh, you take the frequency and divide.
Good. Divided by?
Oh.
Yeah. What is the bottom number? The total frequency.
Oh.
Part over whole. You take that frequency for that class and you divide it by your total frequency. How many decimals should we go out? 3. Sometimes the book goes 2, and sometimes obviously it comes out evenly 2, because this was based on 50. So it goes out to 2. But if it doesn't and you have to round, go 3. I was just going through pieces of your table. Yeah, I know. If you want to put it where you did your graph, where you made the table, sometimes that's a little bit easier when you go to access it again. Just to go through it. Your cumulative frequency, you start with your lowest and you add up, right? So there's all the parts of your table. Your frequency histogram, this is a bar graph. That's the first graph we did. No space in the bars. So for your x-axis, you have a choice. You can either use your midpoint, which I recommend, or your upper class boundary. Okay. I recommend your midpoint because for your frequency polygon, you want to use your midpoint. It comes out to the middle of your bar so that you can just make a line graph out of it. Remember to cut your graph if you need to. Just put a little, like it's not a major thing, just go like this, a little squiggle. This is your frequency. Make sure you give it a title and your bars. That one's probably the most basic, the one you've seen the most. You just change the way you set up your classes. Make sure everything is equally spaced apart. Okay? We did your frequency polygon. This is a line graph. It's going to have the same frequency on your y-axis, but on your x-axis, put your midpoints. And this is important. You need to add +1 midpoint to your left side, and then to the right side. So make sure you factor that in. In other words, this had 7 classes. Our 7 classes, we had to make 8, 9 things. So this one came down extra. That was extra. So your polygon is starting in here somewhere, going up and up and up, but we need to bring it down, and we need to bring it down. It just is a more aesthetic way of making your graph so it's not sitting in the middle of a graph paper. It's just not hanging there. Yeah, so say here's my midpoint. This was 30. My class width is 90. Take 9. Take 9 away from here. What's it going to start at? 21. My last midpoint was 84. Add 9. What's it going to be? 93. You'll never ever have data for that, but it just makes your graph come down to the end. Yes. Yes. You're going to have to add 2 on your frequency polygon. That's what I'm saying. Leave yourself a note. Leave yourself a note that your frequency polygon is a line graph. It's going to need 2. One at the beginning, one at the end. Okay? Don't forget a title. Don't forget your labels. Okay? Next one is your relative frequency graph. This is also a bar. It looks just like your histogram, except the y-axis has your relative frequency. And you're going to see sometimes people use percents there as well. So here's your relative frequency over here. Use your midpoints again. You can use your midpoints or your upper class boundaries. Whatever you used on your frequency distribution one, your histogram, should be the same as this one. This is going to have the same exact look as your bar graph for your histogram. Just your y-axis will be in relative frequency. Remember, take this
Well, before.
and think money. If you do money, it's easier because then you got 0.02, you got 0.04, you got 0.06. I'm just saying, just in case this has to be like this. There's your 0.10. This is not 0.2 because if this is 0.2 and this is 0.10, your graph is off. So think money. Label your axis in money. You're going to go 2, 3 decimals, whatever. If you have 2 decimals here, 3 decimals, think money. And then your OJI. Questions? No? Okay, I'm going to give you guys some to do. And I'm going to give you graph paper. And these are just answering questions about a graph. Then number 32, you're going to do a frequency table, a frequency histogram. I'll give you graph paper, a frequency polygon, a relative frequency, and an OJI. For this and for 39. Okay? So the first 5 questions, you're just going to answer about the graphs that are there. And then the next ones,